Welcome to another Wichita Toy Train Club Lionel product review. I'm Zachariah. Behind the camera we have Chris, and today we're going to take a look at the new Lionel A-6 Atlantic. So real quick, a quick brief history on the A-6 Atlantics. The Southern Pacific A-6 Atlantics were originally their A-3 Atlantics that in 1927 and in 1928 they rebuilt them into the more heftier and modern A-6 Atlantics. These were just about right on par with the Southern Pacific's Pacific-style steam locomotives. They were used for passenger service. They had the big 72-inch drivers until we started getting a little bit heftier steel passenger cars, and they were kind of used all the way up into the 50s. And there was even a couple, actually I think right at two of the A-6 Atlantics that were painted into the daylight paint scheme used for the Sacramento Daylight trains 52 and 53. Features on this locomotive include Lionel's Legacy command system with Legacy rail sound, so you can run this locomotive with the Legacy control or TMCC. You can also run it conventionally with just a transformer and some track. This locomotive also features Bluetooth. That way you can run it with the Lion Chief app or the universal remote. Go ahead and check out the link popping up on the top of your screen to learn how to do that. This locomotive also features two smoke units, one for the main stack and one for the whistle steam smoke effect. There's also a wireless tether between the locomotive and tender, along with a rear backup light and the rear electrocoupler. Let's go in for a closer look. Looking at the front of our locomotive here, starting right up front with our pilots, we have our O-scale dummy coupler up here, which looks very nice. This can be replaced with a O-scale dummy coupler that is in the box with your locomotive when you get it. Down here, this front cow catcher looks very nice, kind of a smooth look to it. We have a couple air hoses that come down here that are separately applied. Moving up, we have our headlamp up here, which looks very nice. It has a Rule 17 lighting with it. That way it gets brighter when we start moving. We have a nice crisp 3002 down here. The side lamps here on the side of it, they don't have individual LEDs in them. The LED back here kind of just lights up this area slightly. So they're illuminated, but they're not. Take it what you will. The front of our smoke box here looks very nice. It does not open. I believe this whole thing is older tooling. Lionel mentioned in their catalog. This has not been seen in the Lionel catalog for about 15 years. So from what I see here, I believe it's a little bit older tooling, but it still looks very nice. We have all kinds of molded in details on the front of the smoke box here. And that handrail here that kind of loops down and around looks very nice. The side of our smoke box has our two classification lights, and those do illuminate when we turn on the locomotive. There are no lights that come on when we first apply track power. Moving down the side of our locomotive here, right up front down here, we have our big steam chest, steam cylinder and valve, which look very nice. Everything's molded in, but still very nice looking. We have our pilot truck down here with those nice shiny wheels. I think those look very nice and just kind of cool looking. I don't know if that's how they really were, but just the shiny look to them looks very nice. Moving up, we have this nice little separately applied pipe going up our smoke box here, which looks very nice. We have our builder's plate right here from Baldwin Locomotive Works. It does say it was built March of 1927. I don't know if that would be correct, considering with what I read saying the A6s were just rebuilt A3s. So I would think the Baldwin plate would say very early 1900s. Somebody else knows a little bit more on these. Go ahead and throw that down in the comments. Be kind of neat to know. Moving along, we have our handrail here, which looks very nice. And do keep in mind, be very careful with that handrail, as that is the antenna for the Legacy electronics inside. Mainly these stanchions. Those stanchions are plastic to keep the antenna from grounding out onto the frame. So just keep that in mind when handling this locomotive. Moving along here, we have our nice looking two-stage air compressor right here, which is separately applied, which looks very nice. We have a couple of other associated parts and pipes and so forth that look very nice. We have the start of another pipe over here. The rest of our boiler is fairly smooth, nothing a whole lot going on here, but still looks very nice. Moving down, we have our big 73-inch drivers. And moving along, we have these nice darkened side rods, which look very nice when the locomotive is in operation here. And if you can see right back up in there, there's kind of a silver gold thing back up in there. That's actually our Bluetooth board up inside there. You guys might not be able to see it. You might kind of see the side of it. But just keep in mind that's back up in there. Real quick here, we went ahead and flipped the locomotive around. Just to show you guys a couple other detail parts on the Fireman side of the locomotive. Right here we have kind of another kind of bigger two-stage air compressor, which looks very nice. We have a radiator type deal over here for the compressed air, and looks like an air reservoir back up in there. Moving on, there's a little step there, a couple other little details and so forth, a couple other associated pipes with that air compressor, and some more going up to the top of the boiler over here. Moving back to the cab of the locomotive here, we can see starting down low here, we have our nice big trailing truck down here. It's kind of a neat looking, beefier one-axle trailing truck. Looks very nice. Everything's molded in on that side frame, but still looks very nice. We have these another pipe coming back over here, which looks very nice. Nice looking rivets and staples and everything on the firebox there. Moving up, we have another little linkage here, and a couple of steps here, washout plugs that are molded in, which look very nice. Moving back, we have some more rivets all around our cab here, which are very nice. Nice crisp 3002, and all of our other associated nomenclature with the locomotive. Now looking on the inside of our cab here, we can see there are all kinds of molded in details on that back head of the boiler there. Our firebox is open, so we can see the glow of the firebox when the power is turned on and the locomotive is turned on and running. All our gauges are painted. There's a couple painted valves in there, so everything looks very nice. There is no cab light on the inside of this cab. Again, kind of testing to the fact that it is most likely a little bit older tooling from Lionel. Looking on the top of our locomotive now, we have that. Here's that pipe that was coming up from the locomotive side. It comes up here. And right over here, we have our funnel for on the top of the smoke box. And as usual, there is a fan-driven smoke unit down in there. So to add smoke fluid, we just pour fluid directly down the stack there. On either side, we have our number boards for the locomotive. Moving back, we have here, I believe this is the sand dome. I can kind of see some, sand pipes going down into the boiler jacketing. So I believe this is our sand dome here. Looks very nice. We have our separately plied bell here, so it does have a little bit of detail in there. Nothing crazy about it. I was kind of telling Chris I was kind of wish Lionel would have been able to squeeze the swinging bell feature into this engine, but obviously that wasn't able to do that. Anyway, moving on, we have our main steam dome back here, which looks very nice. A couple little handles on either side of it there. And moving back, we have our 3 pop-off valves with our whistle on the other side. We'll take a quick look at that here in a second. And moving back, we have a nice separately plied looking dynamo back here. We're got the engine flipped back around, and we're zoomed up on our whistle here, and this does have the whistle steam smoke effect. So this hole right here in the boiler lets smoke come out and gives the illusion of smoke coming out of the whistle. So there is a separate fan-driven smoke unit down in here, and to fill that, you can either get just a needlepoint applicator and just stick it down in there, or what Lionel recommends is this whistle does come out, so it's held in with a magnet. It takes a little bit of effort. Excuse my fat fingers. Comes out just like that, and there's that magnet and so forth. And that gets it out of the way. That way you can just insert a funnel in right here and go ahead and add it in. Go ahead and reinsert this. That magnet actually makes it fairly easy. You just get that square to line up perfectly, and if you, as I say that, you can just usually let go, and it snaps right back into place. Moving back, we can see the top of our cab now. There's a bunch of rivets on the top here, which look very nice, and we have our vent for the top of the cab. This does not open and it's just molded in, so it's sealed shut, but still looks very nice. Looking at the front of our tender here, right down here we have the receiving end of Lionel's wireless drawbar. This works really well, so they've been using it for years. Works great. Moving up, we have a bunch of molded in details up here. So everything looks very nice, brake wheels and grab irons and so forth. And on this side here, we have a nice looking ladder. And this here is a separately applied handrail following up the side of the tender there. Looking on the side of our tender here, it's a nice looking Vanderbilt tender. Up here, it's kind of more boxed. We got all kinds of rivets and so forth. There's a nice looking walkway across here. All these walkways look very nice. No safety tread or drainer holds or anything, but still, again, very nice. Separately applied handrails here and here. Nice crisp Southern Pacific down the side here. We have some weight ratings here, which give you a little bit of information about the tender. Some more piping and so forth down the bottom side, along with a lot more rivets. Over here, we got a nice, neat little toolbox over here. Moving down, our truck side frames are very basic, molded in details on them, but they still look very nice with our journal boxes and everything. Looking at the top of the tender now, starting up front here, we have some nice grab irons here, oil fill cap here, all kinds of little rivets and so forth. Not sure what these are. I think they're kind of lift rings that they would use to pull this plate up, I would imagine. Speaking of that plate coming up, this plate does lift off. Not really sure why. There's our Railsound's light board down up in there. No real need to access it, but it's there. Go ahead and pop that back on. You cannot actually put this on backwards because one of those solder joints for the brass parts hits that other magnet. So that's something nice to know. If I can line that back up, there we go. Moving along here, we have our nice looking handrails that follow all along this walkway here. Again, those are nice looking. We have two water hatches here. Both of these do open. If I go ahead and open this first one here, it does have a kind of a spring in there that forces it open or forces it closed. We can have our master volume pot there. Go ahead and close that. Our back one opens. There is nothing there. It's probably where the rail signal switch would have used to be on a lot of the older TMCC and legacy models. We don't use that anymore, so nothing to see there. And then our wood walkway here is a nice simulated wood decking, which looks very nice. Looking at the rear of the tender here, starting up top, we have our nice looking backup light up here. Again, same thing with the side number boards as with the front headlight. They're kind of illuminated, but kind of not, just by the backup light. The backup light on here, I'll throw up a quick little picture of it. It's a nice warm white compared to the headlamp. I think it looks a lot better than the cool white that the headlamp is. It's not, overly yellow, but still a nice look. Anyway, moving down, we have a nice separately applied grab iron here, our nice crisp 3002 across the back. We have our little separately applied coupler cut bar here, and with all its little hinges and so forth. Nice little stirrup here, and our electrocoupler, which can be fired from our legacy or TMCC remote, and it can also now be fired by the Line Chief app or the universal remote. Looking at the bottom of the locomotive here, we can see our front pilot truck here. As always, add a little bit of oil when you get this locomotive to anywhere where those metal axles goes through the metal frame. We have two center rail pickup rollers for good electrical contact on this locomotive. And again, put a little bit of oil on the ends of those rollers. That way they stay nice and lubed and they don't squeak. Those things squeak real easy, it seems like. And again, anywhere where those drive axles go through the metal frame, that's always a good spot to put some oil. And then, of course, all of our drive gear and so forth for maintenance. You don't need a lot of oil. One little drop will do, but it's just that way the locomotive runs for a nice long life for you. Moving on, we have our legacy serial sticker over here with our little Bluetooth symbol. These things are very nice. It's been kind of adding a little personal touch to the newer legacy locomotives, to having that serial number there. We can see here we have a little screw here that says grease. So once we have this locomotive for 3 or 4 years, it's been ran real hard, a little bit more grease down in that port. If we don't want to tear it apart and really check that gearbox, would be the place to add a little bit of grease. Moving on, we have our trailing truck back here. And as we can see, those wheels are indeed just huge for a trailing truck, but they still look very cool for the locomotive. Anyway, as always, another little dab of oil where that needlepoint axle goes into that plastic bearing. And then sometimes these little copper tabs here can squeak. So if you want to add a little oil there on that axle. Underneath here, we'll try to show it to you. There's a run program switch here. We have our auxiliary smoke unit switch back here for our whistle steam smoke unit. And over here we have our main smoke unit on-off switch. Now we've zoomed up to the underside of that top of the cab there. And as we can see, over here is where Lionel has actually stuck the FCC regulation everything for Bluetooth. I thought this was really odd, but once we see the underside of the tender, we'll see why that's put there, and not underneath the tender where it usually is, but there's all that information if you would like to know. Looking at the bottom of our tender here, we can see there's not a whole lot going on over here. There's not a whole lot of room for anything, with it being that Vanderbilt style underside of the tender. Not any flat spots to really put anything for Lionel. We do have the brake cylinder there, that detail. No linkage or anything, but that's still very nice. A little air reservoir over here. And we have our front truck here and our rear truck back here. And as always, I'd go through and oil your axle ends where they go into the plastic bearings. Same thing with the center rail picker rollers, per the usual. Over here we have our IR sensor for the LCS center track. And just kind of another note to being a little bit older tooling, we can see they've added this little box to enclose the sensor. That way it gets closer to the track so it gets read correctly. And it actually blocks out the Lionel LLC labeling that would have been right here. So that's just something I find neat. And as I mentioned earlier with the FCC labeling, not really any place to put that over here. So that's probably why they chose that top of the cab for it. Moving back here, we have our rear electrocoupler, per the usual, and our standard rear truck back here. All right, we got the engine on the track here, track power on. As we can see, there are no lights on. So we'll go ahead and fire it up, listen to some of the sounds, and then we'll take it for a spin around the layout.
This is the dispatcher. Do you copy? I copy that. Over. Start up and get ready to move. Over. Yes, sir. Start up and stand by. Out.
All right, we'll give our smoke units a second here to warm up. Real quick, I'll go ahead and just remind everybody with our newer legacy locomotives, we do not get a memory module that comes with the locomotive. So we have to enter everything manually into the Cab 2 remote, or go ahead and use the LCS Sentry Track to go ahead and enter all the information into the legacy base. So I think we're warmed up here. We'll go ahead and give the whistle a try here. Very nice. Go ahead and listen to the bell. Right. Go ahead and listen to some of the crew talk.
Dispatcher, can I get to the main line? Over. Roger that. Take the green. Over. Roger that. All clear. Moving to the outbound. Out.
All right, so we'll go ahead and fill up the oil and water, and we'll put it in sequence mode and take it for a spin.
My water's full. Over. Affirmative. Out. My oil's full. Over. Roger that. Out.
Okay, so Both me and Chris think that oil fill sound's actually a coal loading sound, and they just still say oil's full. Let me know what you guys think. But to me, it just really does sound like the coal loading sequence. But let's go ahead and put sequence mode and take it for a spin.
Dispatcher, cleared outbound. Over. Acknowledged. Out. Dispatcher, we're on the move. Over. Affirmative. Keep 'em rolling. Out. dispatcher. We're in position. Over. Affirmative. You're on your mark. Out. Dispatcher, we're signing out and going to beans. Out.
All right, so we've taken the Locomotive for a spin around the layout. And as you can see and hear, this Locomotive looks and sounds great. It's a wonderful running Locomotive. Chris, you got anything else to add on this engine?
Other than it looks great on this layout, and I'm sure any layout it would make a bold statement with a nice looking reefer train. My favorite part about this is probably the Vanderbilt tender and how it's different from any other locomotive that you typically see on the market.
Yeah. The Vanderbilt tender is definitely kind of a staple of any oil-fired, kind of the Western, UP, SP, some of the Santa Fe. Very nice looking tender. I've said it before. I'm sure the pilot wheels aren't supposed to be shiny, but at this point, I don't care. I think they stand out and they look really cool. So it's a very nice locomotive. This locomotive has a minimum curve of 0.31. So you can practically run this thing anywhere, unless for some weird reason you're over there running with 0.27 curves everywhere. I don't know what to tell you. This locomotive was cataloged in Lionel's 2018 Volume 2 catalog. You go ahead and find it in there. And as you can see, we have all kinds of different paint schemes and road numbers Lionel has available. First and foremost, there is the daylight version, which, like I mentioned before, is prototypical. Very nice looking paint job onto that. Sorry if I'm not holding this correctly. Go to Lionel's website. You'll get much better pictures than you will see here. But there is a Southern Pacific version, which we have here, the Southern Pacific Lines version, if you like that variation. And then there are a couple of kind of fantasy paint schemes, but not too terribly far-fetched. These railroads would have had 442s, but not Southern Pacific's versions of the A6s. So like Union Pacific's probably the closest, but they obviously had their own differences. Chicago and Northwestern, and then the Illinois Central. So there's a little bit of variation for you guys out there. Anybody in Western Railway that likes those. And like I mentioned before, these are an 0.31 minimum radius curve, so these are very friendly to small layouts. And they MSRP for right at $800, so not terribly expensive. But if you go through any good Lionel dealer, you probably get a little bit of a discount on that retail price. At the time of this video, which is April of 2020, these things are, I don't remember when they shipped, but they probably shipped late 2019, so dealers are starting to run out of them. So if you guys like what you see here, be sure to get in contact with your dealer, see if they still have one. This concludes our review of Lionel's new A-6 Atlantic. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe to us here on YouTube. That way you get all of our notifications. Don't forget about that bell. That bell lets you get all the notifications of our product reviews and joining train videos. Also, don't forget to go ahead and check us out on Facebook. That way you get all of our updated information about our open hours here in Wichita, Kansas, and all of our any and upcoming train shows. Thanks for watching.